In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the if function, because sometimes we might want to do something if something else is true. And I've got my interactive interpreter, the idle environment, running here on the right-hand side of the screen. And I've already gone under File and said New File. And I've got my file editor on the left of the screen. And I've named the file Evaluation. Now let's get started by entering the following commands. And what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be prompting the user to enter the native VLAN, the voice VLAN, and the data VLAN configuration that we might have on a Cisco Catalyst switch for a voice over IP environment where we're using Cisco IP phones. And Cisco has a best practice recommendation that the native VLAN equal the data VLAN. And we're going to be checking to see if that's the case. And if not, we want to warn the user about that. So let's ask them what VLANs they're using. I'm going to say native VLAN using our input statement again. I'll say input, and in parentheses and in quotes, I'm going to say, what is your native VLAN? Question mark, space, close quote, close parentheses. Let's ask about the voice VLAN. I'll say voice VLAN. Input, what is your voice VLAN? Question mark, space, close quote, close parentheses. And let's do the data VLAN. I'll say data VLAN equals input. What is your data VLAN? Question mark, space, close quote, close parentheses. So that's going to populate our variables. Now let's do that evaluation using the if function. I'm going to say if the native VLAN equals, and remember the best practice is that the native VLAN equal the data VLAN. I'll say if it equals, but remember when we're doing a Boolean test, we don't just say equals because that's how we assign a variable. We need to use a double equal sign. So I'll say if native VLAN equal the data VLAN, and I'm going to give a colon to go down and say what we are going to do if those two do in fact equal. I'll say colon, and notice it indented a little bit here, and I'm going to say if those two do in fact equal, then I want to print a message that says looks good. I'll say print, and in parentheses and quotes, I'll say looks good, exclamation point, close quote, close parentheses. But what if those two do not equal? I'm going to backspace, and I'm going to say else, colon. So if those do not equal, what are we going to do? We're going to print a different message. I'll say we're going to print the message, parentheses, quote, caution. It's a best practice for the native VLAN and data VLAN to be the same, close quote, close parentheses. Now, let's save this again and run it. I'll say save, then I'll say run it. It says, what is your native VLAN? I'll say the native VLAN is 100. I'll say my voice VLAN is 200. And we'll say that I am adhering to best practices and my data VLAN equals my native VLAN of 100. And it says, looks good. What if those did not equal though? Let's just test that. I'll say, in this case, my native VLAN is 1, my voice VLAN is 200, and my data VLAN is 100. Then it gives me the caution that it's a best practice for the native VLAN and the data VLAN to be the same. Something else we could do is a compound evaluation with our Boolean logic. In other words, we can say, I want to do something if this condition is true and this other condition is true. For example, let's have the user enter their COS and DSCP values for their voice packets. And we're going to check to see if they're adhering to best practices. It's a best practice that the COS of a voice packet be 5 and a DSCP value be 46. So let's just update what we have here. We'll create a variable called COS, and I'm going to ask the user what is your voice COS value? We'll also ask them about their DSCP value. What is your voice DSCP value? And let's do one of those compound evaluations. We're going to say if the COS value equals 5, and by the way, this is going to be a string value that we're evaluating, so I need to put this in quotes. I'll say if COS equals 5, and I want something else to be true, and DSCP, double equal sign, equals 46. And then I'll do a colon after that. I'll say print, looks good. Else, we want to give another caution. I'll say it's a best practice for, let me overwrite this. It's a best practice for the voice COS to be 5 and the voice DSCP, make this uppercase, the voice DSCP to be 46, close quote, close parentheses. Let's save and run this. We'll do a save. Let's do a run module. What is my voice COS value? Well, let's say that we are using best practices and it's going to be a 5, and my DSCP value is 46. It says looks good. What if I'm not following best practices? I could say my voice COS value is a 3 and my voice DSCP value is a 46. It's going to say, your best practice is not being followed, and it tells us what that best practice is. And finally in this video, let's look at another way of doing an evaluation. We're going to use something called the ELIF function, E-L-I-F. After we do the initial evaluation with the if statement, we can do a subsequent evaluation. We can say, if this were true, then do this. Otherwise, let's check something else and see if that's true. And if it is, we'll do this. And if neither of those are true, then we'll do whatever's specified by the else statement. So let's do one more modification here. Let's say, what is your voice DSCP value? And if we have a DSCP value of a 46, it's probably a voice media packet. If it's a voice DSCP value of 24, it's probably a voice signaling packet. And let's try to figure out which one it is. We'll say if the DSCP value equals 46, then we'll print to the screen, this is a voice media packet. Now let's do a subsequent evaluation. We'll say ELIF, and we'll do another conditional test. I'll say ELIF DSCP equals 24 in quotes, and we have to put the colon afterwards. If DSCP equals 24, but DSCP did not equal 46, then we're going to print this is a voice signaling packet. And if that's not true, then we'll say this is not a voice packet. All right, let's save it and run it and see what happens. What is my DSCP value? Let's say it's 46. It says, oh, that's a voice media packet. Let's run it again. Let's say this time it's a 24. It's a voice signaling packet. Let's run it one more time and say that our value is 41. It says this is not a voice packet. And that's a look at how we can do evaluations using the if function. And we saw a couple of its components, the else and the ELIF functions.